Hi guys, today we're talking about finding the roots by using the quadratic formula. So, just as a reminder, roots are where our graph crosses our x-axis. And I happened to draw this line before I started, this dotted line, and that's just our line of reflection. Quadratics, if you've noticed at this point, we've got the same on one side as the same on the other, so my sketch isn't the greatest over here, but ideally from your vertex we try to have the same on each side. Alright, so if we are looking to find the roots using the quadratic formula, we probably should write down what the quadratic formula is and where it comes from. So the quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, everything divided by 2a. And this a, b, and c come from the standard form of any quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c. So we figure out what numbers are in the right positions, we plug in the right spots, we simplify, and then we get our roots, which is fantastic. Alright, so here's where especially using the quadratic formula comes in handy. If we're looking at our first example, which is x squared plus 10x minus 1, you can try to factor, and you can try to factor, but unfortunately x squared plus 10x minus 1 is not going to factor. There's no numbers that multiply to be negative 1 and also add to be 10. So instead, we're going to have to use the quadratic formula. And you should definitely always try to factor first, probably because it's faster. So by the way, this is the quadratic formula. I'll just label this. This is the 1. And then this is the standard form of quadratic. Okay, so try to factor first. Can't factor in this one, so we're going to use a quadratic formula. So a equals the number in front of x squared, which in our case is 1. B is the number in front of x, which is 10. And c is the number at the end, which is negative 1. So I'm always going to write down the quadratic formula first. So x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. And then I just substitute my numbers in that I got from my standard form equation and simplify. So x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of b squared is 10 squared minus 4 is in the equation. A is 1, c is negative 1, all divided by 2 times 1. Okay, so let's do some simplifying. Negative 10 can't be simplified. We're just going to leave it as negative 10. Plus or minus a square root. We can simplify stuff on the inside. 10 squared is, of course, 100. Negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. Times negative 1 is positive 4. So we get 100 plus 4, all on the inside of your square root, divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So x equals negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 104 divided by 2, which 104 is not a perfect square, and that's okay. It is fine not to have a perfect square. You could approximate it with a decimal, but regardless, we're going to deal with this plus or minus sign right now. Because it says plus or minus, and more likely than not, you're going to have two roots, you're going to need to do this 2 times. One where you have x is equal to negative 10 plus the square root of 104 all over 2, and the other where you x is equal to negative 10 minus the square root of 104 all over 2. So I'm going to put this in my calculator. I'm just doing a decimal approximation. This is actually fully simplified. So if you come across a quadratic equation, you can leave it like this if you want to, especially where we are right now. Next couple units, maybe not so much, but right now, that's beautiful. So we'll do negative 10 plus the square root of 104, all divided by 2, which gives me a decimal, so I'm just going to check my answer just to make sure I got it right. And I did, so my x is equal to 0.099 and on forever and ever, and it's kind of gross. So we get one of our decimal answers, do the same thing the other one, so negative 10 minus the square root of 104, and then divided by 2. I get x equals negative 10.099. So one of my roots and the other roots. And that's how we do this on this one. Okay, one more problem. This one you can factor, but let's just say for the sake of time, you're like, hey, I don't know how to factor this. I'm having a hard time with this. You can always use the quadratic formula. Again, it's not going to be faster, but you can always use the quadratic formula. All right, so for this problem, A is going to equal 4. B in the middle is an unknown. We don't have it, so we're going to have 0 because there's nothing written next to an x. And C is going to be -9. All right, so x equals, write down the quadratic formula first. If you're going to use it, you got to write it down. B squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, all divided by 2a. So substitute in and simplify one more time. We get -0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared minus 4 times 4 for the a times c is -9. You keep that square root sign going all the way across, all divided by. Alright.
Let's simplify. -0 is just 0 plus or minus the square root of 0 squared is 0. -4 times 4 is going to be -16 times -9 is going to be 144. So 0 plus 144 is 144, all divided by 8. So I get x equals 0 plus the square root of 144 is 12, all divided by 8. And we have also 0 minus the square root of 144, all divided by 12, which is 12, all divided by 8. So I get 12 divided by 8, which we can reduce to, let's see, divide by 4 for both of them, so 3 over 2. And then I also get -12 divided by 8, again divide by 4, so I get -3 over 2. So my two roots for my equation on the right are 3/2 and -3/2. Alright guys, if you've got questions or need anything, let me know. Otherwise, we get our worksheet, we'll get to work. Thanks a lot.